Hello, everyone. Welcome back to GTR24H, the home of the Endurance eRacing World Championship. And we've got a very special interview lined up for you. My name is Alex Goldschmidt. Joining me, as always, is Yousuf bin-Suhayl. And we welcome a very famous Malay driver, actually, with us at the moment. Good to see you, Alex Yoong. How are you?
Good, mate. Good to be here. Nice to talk to all of you.
So Axel Sports, one of the longest standing Asia esports team, has a crack squad of four drivers competing in the DPi class. They have done already, actually. They made their debut back at Spa-Francorchamps. The likes of Mika Hakimi, Mikko Nassi, Mikko, who I know from his journeys in Rotax circles in karting. Josh Purwien, a very, very quick driver in his own right, and Naquib Azlan as well. Alex, firstly, really wanted to get the idea of why Axel Sports decided to enter the last two rounds of the EEWC.
Yeah, I mean, we've just been doing more and more races. Like you saw, we got an entry into Le Mans Virtual Series, and we're in VC as well. So it was nice to, get the invite to go to the 24 hours. And, we'd like to try and do more good championships in Europe, and that's one of the ones we targeted.
Even with the fact of there being sort of a 6 hour time difference between Central Europe and Malaysia as well, eh?
Yeah, that's a bit of a pain in the neck, but we're kind of used to it over here in Asia.
Also, I really wanted to ask you, Alex, about the genesis of Axel Sports itself. Started in the late 2000s. Obviously, yourself, you've raced in Formula One. You're a three-time Audi R8 LMS Cup champion. Nearly was four on the bounce in one particular year, I think 2017, I think, if memory serves me correctly, possibly. But you've got a lot of experience, A1 GP with Team Malaysia, multi-time race winner. What was the genesis of Axel Sports? How did it come to be? And what was, I think you're one of the founders of it as well, if memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, that's right. We founded Axel Sports in 2008. But let's see. So after Formula One in 2001, 2002, I guess you could say I became a bit of a journeyman driver. Managed to get over to America, did some champ car racing, did Bathurst, I did V8 supercars. Then you like A1 GP, A1 Team Malaysia, won a few races there, which was a really great experience for everyone here in Malaysia. We had really good popularity and the team was going well. And then we could see A1 was kind of disappearing. I had a young son, so I wasn't prepared to travel to Europe so much unless I had a guaranteed gig, and I didn't. So in 2008, we formed Axel. We built race cars, and we raced them around the region successfully. Then I went off to Europe again. I got a gig. I got a call up to do head of driver development for Cadillac. So I was there for a few years. And then after that, came back to Malaysia because I had the Formula One commentary still going and Audi Cup. And that's when we fired up Axel again because I was on the back burner for a couple of years. And got into esports in 2018. We could always see simulator racing was the future. And we felt in 2018 that I had enough impetus, enough, the wheels moving, and we felt it was the right time to get in. And then, of course, with the pandemic, it became a silver lining, because everyone was stuck at home and we could fully focus on it properly.
Yeah, which is why eRacing GP, which we see on camera and also on commentary as well. Your son Alistair was actually part of the Axel Sports crew that raced at the Le Mans 24-hour virtual. And I remember the story that you actually got shoehorned in because they needed two real-life drivers. And considering your experience at Le Mans 2006, 2007, you actually got rookie of the event in 2006. You guys were running quite competitively, but I did see the blog from Axel Sports and from a perspective of a newish team going against some of the best in the sim racing globe. That you guys, I think you had a bit of a few technical dramas. I think the steering wheel had an issue towards the end of the race.
Yeah, absolutely. We only got the entry there because of my experience at Le Mans, so ACO gave us the entry. But to be honest, we weren't ready for it. They gave us the entry, so I was like, right, guys, we're doing R Factor 2. But the point of the factor is we've not done R Factor 2. I think Mika had been doing it, but none of us had been doing it. So we only had a month to prepare. And yeah, I didn't want to drive. I was slow as heck. I'm a bit too old school for simulators, and I struggled a lot that year. So I was very slow. Alistair wasn't bad. Mika was pretty good. He kept us in the race, to be honest. But yeah, we had 2 disconnections, and then the wheel failed on one of the last stints, so that put us right at the back.
But obviously, that's given you and the guys at Axel Sports a real good taster of what's to come, and we're really pleased that you've joined us here at GTR24H with the Endurance eRacing World Championship. Yousuf, some questions from yourself, I think, are in order.
Yeah, Alex, you mentioned that you, I guess, struggled a little bit with your first kind of year in sim racing, and it's a question I do like to go into when talking to actual racing drivers, because some of them, they're able just to jump on into a simulator, no matter what the platform is, and able to do really well. Others, like yourself, struggle a bit more. So I just wanted to kind of understand what the differences are for you between real life racing, between jumping onto a platform like rFactor 2, and then even using the, let's say, the official simulators that multiple racing teams will have to help drivers prepare for races.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think it's partly to do with age and what experience you've had before.
Okay.
I mean, I'm all right on the sim now, but I don't see any of the old buggers jumping on and being okay. Except maybe Fernando Alonso, but Fernando Alonso is a bit special, right?
Right. Yeah.
I don't see any of the old ones jumping on. I still see Frank Wheeler's getting quite good on the sim, and Frank Wheeler's a bit special, but it's also taking him a long time. Yeah. So the thing is, for me, it's the depth perception. I can't judge speed in the depth perception, because basically, if you get into any road car, ask you to drive around your village or the city or wherever, and you try and drive around with one eye, it's very tough, because that's what it is like for me to drive on a 2D screen, because I've lost the depth perception. It's a saying like when people drive with a halo in a game, the halo's there in the way, and that really ticks me off, because in real life, you don't see the halo because you've got 2 eyes. You see around the halo. But in the games, it's 2D and the halo's there, and it's silly they don't make adjustment for that. So the same for me when I play a game. It's like I'm driving the one eye. I got no depth perception. It's very hard for me to know how much speed to carry through the corner. It does get better though. You do more laps, and it gets better and better. And it's not insurmountable. It's definitely not insurmountable. It just takes time. But see, yeah, I see some of the younger guys they jump in, they're quick straight away, and it's not an issue at all.
A kind of follow-up question that I do want to bring is comparing endurance racing on a sim to endurance racing at the track itself, because one of the biggest differences that I've always kind of found is I've done a bit of karting, and for me, whenever I jump into a kart, I've always got a smile on my face. I'm always raring to go for the next lap. But sometimes when I jump on into a sim, you just start to think, when is it over? Because you don't get that full feel of the speed and the adrenaline rush. And I was wondering if it's something similar for you, where you get a bit more lethargic in a sim as a result, especially when you've got a long stint.
It's a very good point, mate. It's a long answer, but it's a very good point. First thing though is when I did Virtual Le Mans last year, even though I hated it because it was really hard for me to keep it on the road, I did recognize that the rhythm of the race, how you start the race, how you have to look after everything, and how you have a lot of carnage early on, and you have to see how it goes to night, to day. The rhythm of that race was identical to the real thing.
Okay.
I thought it was identical, and I loved that about it. But yes, of course, you don't get the same sensations. You don't have that thing. And yes, practicing on the sim, I get very bored of it very quickly. But, and like I went karting today, and I haven't karted in 3 years and stuff. But maybe I'm a bit jaded, maybe because I've been doing it a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't really get a kick out of doing the karting either, to be honest. I get a kick out of competition. I get a kick out of trying to beat people and get the most out of myself. Mostly it's about trying to get the most from yourself. And for that, it's the art of driving, the art of racing and stuff. So I get that on the sim just as much as the real world.
Yeah.
So that bit I totally dig. But I totally get it. If you've never done much racing, and you've done a little bit of karting, a little bit of single-seaters and stuff, every lap on the track is going to feel amazing, right? It's going to be a bit more precious. I have a different view. I'm 45. I've done a lot of racing over the last 30 years. Very lucky to. But the actual driving doesn't really thrill me. It's art of getting the most out of the car myself, setup, and then the actual racing, you know. And the racing in the sim can be as rewarding as real life. Yeah, it gets a bit annoying when you get knocked off because there's a lot more silly incidents online and you can get disconnects and stuff. But largely, you still get the same satisfaction of trying to conquer the driving, conquer the racing, and get the most of everything, really.
And final question for me, you mentioned setups, and I think that's a really good point because I think it is one of the key differences, again, between sim racing and online endurance races. When you're racing, and I'm sure you know this far better than myself, when you're at an actual event, you've got a very limited amount of track time, limited amount of time to be able to test the car, get a setup done. But when you've got an online event, you've got, well, as long as you're awake, really, to be able to jump on into a sim rig and develop a setup. Do you think that is either a good thing because you can get a setup that is perfect for you and the rest of the team, or do you think it takes something away because everyone's got an infinite amount of time essentially to be able to set up the car and there's less intuition in being able to develop a setup quickly?
Okay, the degrees are different, but it's not night and day different.
Okay.
You can get different degrees of stuff just from doing say something like jumping in Le Mans with no testing, or going to the Spa 24 hours where you practice and practice and practice. There are different degrees, and the sim racing world is different again, but it's not night and day different. So there are some subtle differences. Like I come from a real world background, so when I set up the car, I have to remember not to set it up like a real car. There are fine differences. And our engineer comes from a race car background. He was just at the real 24 hours Le Mans. So his name's Han. He and I are always going, okay, God, you got to remember it's a game. It's a different. We don't think it's a game. It's different. We think, okay, it's a different car. You have to drive it differently, and that's the thing with the R Factor 2. Something that just reminds us, okay, the cars. You need the car to move around a bit. We need to do this. Okay, if I do this in a real car, I know I'm going to lose 0.2 of delta down the next straight, but it works in R Factor, you know. So it is different, but it's not that different. You know, it's like trying to compare a front-wheel drive touring car around Spa for 24 hours compared to a GT3 around the Nordschleife for 24 hours. There are subtle differences, but it's not a night and day difference.
Perfect. I mean, Alex, that's been everything for me.
Yeah, I mean, you have actually competed at the 24 hours of the Nurburgring Nordschleife, and not just in GT3, but also when Audi released the R8 GT4. Remember you doing a vlog about that as well. I mean, out of all the tracks you've raced, I mean, the Nordschleife is one of the biggest tests. You know, it's over 20 kilometers. You're having to go through so many different places like Flugplatz, Brünnchen, the Carousel, the Duttinger Höhe. I mean, that must be an absolute dream for any real life racing driver worth their salt to get behind the wheel of something and just go to town at the Nordschleife and have a challenge.
Absolutely. I'm not a romantic person. I don't like Ferrari and I never got romantic about the whole Nordschleife thing. But when I went there, and I went there for the first year, I did zero simulator practice. I did zero. I just thought I'll go there and I'll learn it in 10 minutes and you're done. Man, was I wrong. Jesus Christ. I look back at that now, how stupid were you to go there without any simulator practice. It's the best track in the world, by far, by far. If Spa is a 10 in real life, and Suzuka is a 9.5, and say Bathurst is a 9.7. If you add Nordschleife into the equation, Nordschleife is a 10 and Spa's a 6. You know, it's a big difference. You can't even
that is a huge difference when you look at it from that perspective. There's really one final question. Why did Axel Sports decide not to go into LMP2 and go to DPi? That's an interesting question that I have really to round things off.
Yeah, it's just because we got an entry to VEC with the DPi. So because we got the entry to VEC with DPi, we were a bit late. We couldn't get entry to the LMP2. So like, wow, we know the LMP2 really well. We've had a whole year in R Factor. We've gotten pretty good at it. We've won some races in Europe with the LMP2. But we didn't have much experience with DPi. So like, well, let's do the 24 hours in the DPi. At least it gets us more laps and it gets us to think about it a bit more. And that was really the reason.
Well, Alex.
And also it's nice just to be at the front sometimes.
Actually, can I just throw in one final question?
Okay, go on. Why not? Why not?
Yeah, you brought up about how much you like the Nurburgring, and I had a question that I was formulating in my mind, and you've answered half of that. If you could you can pick any car you want, any track you want, a full day. Let's say it's you and your son, and you just want to go out, enjoy some track time, enjoy some racing. What car, what track?
It's a really good question. If you're just looking for a fun day, like you out with your friends and something, something not even something very quick, something just fun to drive. I don't know. I can't even think at the moment, but around a nice track. But if you want to talk about, holy crap, eyes on the top, out on stalks thing, then a GT3 at Nordschleife is pretty special. V8 supercar at Bathurst is pretty special. I've done a 2-liter touring car at Bathurst, and it was freaking ordinary. Nothing special about it at all. But a V8 supercar, it's because it's quite agriculture. Those cars are still quite agriculture, although they're getting more sophisticated. So that around Bathurst is pretty special. Formula One car at Monaco, that has your eyes on stalks. Formula One car, Jesus Christ, around Monaco is, So there are a few experiences like that. The car has to fit the track. Even if you go a little bit further, something slower, like a Formula 3 car around Macau, that's pretty special as well. So around, if you want to go around like Nordschleife, I think, a Group C car around Nordschleife.
Yeah, I think you're speaking my language right there, Alex. Probably from the old Stefan Beloff days, from the 962Cs, that kind of stuff as well. But Alex, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate you jumping on board with us for an interview, and we wish you and the team at Axel all the very best of luck for the forthcoming Le Mans Virtual Series. I think it's next up is the 6 Hours of Monza and 6 Hours of Spa on the 16th of October.
Awesome, man. Thanks very much for having us, and see you soon.
See you at Le Mans.